Slips can happen in almost any part of the workplace. You should be aware of the possibility of slips no matter where you work. How slippery a surface is depends, of course, on what it's made of. Some surfaces are much more slippery than others. Add water, a spilled substance, grease or oil, or even fresh wax or polish, and you really have the potential for slips and falls. Sometimes wet surfaces cannot be avoided. Use floor mats to help remove the wetness from shoes. The mats should have a non-skid bottom and should be changed as often as necessary. For your own protection, use the mats, but remember that the soles of your shoes may still be wet or slippery. Use extra precaution as you proceed. Leather soles and high heels compound the hazard of slippery surfaces. Some heels may also get caught in steel grates. If you work in an area where there are slippery surfaces, wear shoes with non-skid soles. When selecting shoes, consider what chemicals or other substances they'll be exposed to. Obstructions such as blocked aisleways, materials not properly stored, open drawers, unsecured hoses or cords across pathways, and other obstacles are trip hazards just waiting to become accidents. Preventing a potentially serious trip injury from happening comes down to two simple points. Number one, be aware of and respect the hazard. And number two, take a second to follow safe procedures by removing or eliminating the hazard. Close all drawers after getting what you need, even if it'll just be open for a minute or two. Hoses and cords should never become permanent fixtures across an aisle. If they need to be there for more than a few moments, secure them. When the job requires a number of tools or parts to be out, cordon off the area. Use markings and warning signs to make others aware of potentially hazardous areas. Colored striping or other highly visible markings should be used to show the change from a level floor surface to a ramp or different surface level. Good housekeeping is everyone's responsibility. You are in the best position to notice, report, and correct conditions that could cause a slip, trip, or fall. Poor lighting reduces your chances of noticing a hazard. Good lighting is especially important around high-incident areas, such as loading docks and stairways. If the lighting is inadequate or a bulb needs to be replaced, report it immediately to your supervisor or safety manager. Ladders account for over 30,000 injured workers each year. To meet OSHA requirements, any ladder used must be a Type 1 or 1A, rated for 300 pounds. Inspect the ladder for cracks, slivers, loose rungs, and sharp edges prior to using it. Check the condition of each step. Remove any dirt, oil, grease, or other substances which may cause you to slip. When you use a ladder in a doorway or heavy traffic zone, be sure to block off the area. Secure the door or have a coworker stand at the door while the ladder is in use. This will prevent someone from accidentally hitting the ladder. Whenever you place a ladder against the side of a building or other object, make sure the object is stable. Don't set the ladder up on uneven surfaces and watch out for any potential electrical hazards. When setting up a straight or extension ladder, use the 4-to-1 ratio rule. For every 4 feet of height, the base of the ladder should be out 1 foot. If you climb onto a roof or other object, the ladder should extend a minimum of 3 feet beyond the point where it's supported. For additional protection, the ladder should be tied off at the top, bottom, or both. When climbing a ladder, always maintain 3 points of contact, with either 2 hands and 1 foot or 2 feet and 1 hand on the ladder. The rung or step of the ladder should be just in front of your heel, under the arch of your foot. Tools and other items should be carried on a belt or raised with a tow line. Many falls occur when a person on a ladder reaches too far to the side. Your belt buckle should never move outside the plane of the 2 rails of the ladder. Instead of reaching out too far, climb down and move the ladder. Fixed ladders and stairways are other areas where falls can take place. 80% of all falls that happen on stairs occur on the first 2 or the last 2 steps. 90% of all stairway falls are due to unsafe behavior. Don't run up or down stairs or skip a step. Take them one at a time and be sure to use the hand railing. Never carry a load that blocks your vision or makes it difficult to maintain your balance. Falls often happen when we're in a hurry or are thinking of something else. Stairways deserve your full concentration. Stairs should be kept clear at all times. Don't store anything on stairs, even for a short time. Eliminating slips, trips, and falls on stairways requires your individual attention and action.
Wear a hard hat whenever there is a possibility of tools or materials falling from an upper level, when objects are being carried or swung nearby, or when there is a possibility of contact with electricity. Hard hats are designed and constructed to resist impact and absorb shock. The one-piece outer shell protects against blows or penetration. The suspension system, consisting of the headband and crown straps, absorbs shock by spreading out the energy of an impact. Select the appropriate eye or face protection based on your work environment and job tasks. Wear safety glasses with side shields if you're sanding, chipping, drilling, or performing any task where you're exposed to flying objects like wood, metal, plastic, or stone fragments. If there is extreme exposure, wear a face shield. A face shield is considered to be secondary protection and must always be worn with either safety glasses or goggles. If handling chemicals, wear goggles, and if a splash hazard exists, wear a face shield. Some types of mists, gases, or vapors require special purpose goggles. Exposure to high noise levels can damage your hearing, causing irreversible hearing loss. If an 8-hour time-weighted average exposure of 85 decibels or more is present, you must wear hearing protection devices. Warning signs or placards identify high-noise areas. As a general rule, if you cannot carry on a conversation in a normal voice, you may need hearing protection. A hearing protection device either covers the ears or goes into the ears to block excessive noise. Earmuffs have cushioned plastic cups covering each ear that are connected by a headband. Although they offer the best protection for the ears, safety glasses may interfere with a tight seal. Ear plugs are inserted into the ear canal to effectively block noise. To insert correctly, pull the ear back with the opposite hand. Roll the ear plug and insert into the ear canal. The plug will expand to fill the canal. Repeat with the other side. Gloves provide an effective barrier between your hands and potential hazards. Select your gloves based on the job you are doing and the materials or substances that you may encounter. Do not wear gloves if they create a greater hazard, such as when working around rotating parts that could catch the glove, pulling your hand into a machine. Wear cotton gloves for protection against dirt, splinters, and abrasion. Leather gloves guard against rough surfaces, chips, and sparks, as well as moderate heat. Cut-resistant or metal mesh gloves should be worn when working with sharp objects. Do not wear metal mesh gloves if there is a possibility of electrical contact. Sleeve or forearm cuffs protect the arms and wrists from heat, impact, and cuts. Insulated rubber gloves protect against electrical shock and burns. Neoprene, rubber, vinyl, and other materials protect against chemicals. Inspect your gloves before putting them on. Do not wear gloves that are torn, cracked, or damaged. Make sure your hands are covered completely and the gloves fit snugly but comfortably. After working with chemicals, remove the gloves so that the chemical does not touch your skin. Wash your hands after removing the gloves. Wear disposable gloves whenever there is a possibility of contact with blood or other infectious material. Work shoes or boots should be chosen with your work environment in mind. In most situations, work shoes or boots with sturdy leather uppers and non-skid soles are appropriate. Wear safety shoes with toe protection when you are working around heavy equipment, when handling materials that could drop on your toes, or when using heavy hand carts. Wear steel foot guards over shoes if you need extra protection for the bridge of the foot. If working with corrosives or other harmful chemicals, wear impermeable rubber or neoprene boots. Rubber boots or shoes, or leather shoes with special soles, provide traction when working in wet or slippery areas. In certain situations, your trunk or body may need extra protection. Closely woven cotton clothing protects against cuts and bruises on jobs where heavy, sharp, or rough materials are handled. When working with heat or hot metals, wear wool, leather, or specially treated cotton clothing. Flash protective clothing protects against electrical burns when working with high voltage. Never wear synthetic fibers like nylon or rayon when working with heat or electricity. Rubber, rubberized fabrics, and neoprene protect against many acids and chemicals.
With the help of the United States and many other countries, the United Nations developed the GHS to ensure that the handling instructions for hazardous chemicals are clear and easily understood worldwide. For example, a substance with acute oral toxicity at this level could be labeled anything from toxic or harmful to not dangerous or non-toxic, depending on the country it was produced in. What does the GHS look like? The system standardizes two critical areas of hazard communication: how hazardous chemicals are classified and the methods used to communicate those hazards. Breaking it down further, there are three types of hazards: physical, health, and environmental. And there are two types of communication: labels and safety data sheets. More about those later. Under physical hazards, there are 16 categories. 10 categories under health hazards, and environmental hazards has 2. While we won't spend time on each of the 28 categories here, it's worth emphasizing that the chemicals that fit into this list can be very dangerous. Obviously, anyone handling hazardous chemicals must make sure that they know what they're doing to avoid injuring themselves and others. Fortunately, whether a chemical puts you at risk for physical hazards, health hazards, or both, you can protect yourself. And for every chemical classified as hazardous at your worksite, the information you need to stay safe is available to you. Fortunately, the GHS has simplified interpreting the hazard information on labels by standardizing 3 key label components: symbols, signal words, and hazard statements. Under this system, no matter where a chemical originates from, the same words and symbols are always applied to a specific hazard classification. When looking at a GHS label, the first thing you're likely to notice is the symbol, which is also called a hazard pictogram. This is a graphic representation of the type of hazard present. On container labels in the workplace, Pictograms are in the shape of a white diamond and have a red border. Depending on the hazard, one of 9 possible black symbols appears in the center. Among the possible hazards that may be represented by these symbols, oxidizers, flammables, explosives, acute toxicity, corrosives, gases under pressure, carcinogen, environmental toxicity, and irritant. Words are the second element on a GHS label and are used to indicate a hazard's relative level of severity. There are only 2 signal words, danger and warning. Danger is used for more severe hazards. Warning is used for hazards that are less severe. Some lower-level hazards don't use any signal words. Hazard statements are the third element on a GHS label. These standard phrases are assigned to specific hazards based on their class and category. Their purpose is to briefly describe the nature and degree of the hazard. Though the GHS doesn't specify the label's actual layout, these 3 standardized elements, pictograms, signal words, and hazard statements, should always be located together. 4 other important elements also appear on every GHS label. Precautionary statements describe the recommended measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects from hazardous chemicals. In other words, they amount to a briefly worded list of best work practices, such as do not allow contact with air, avoid breathing fumes, keep in original container, and brush off loose particles from skin. Precautionary statements cover 4 areas: prevention, response, in case of accidental spillage or exposure, storage, and disposal. Product identifier is just that, the chemical identity of the substance and proper shipping name. This should match the product identifier found on the safety data sheet. Supplier identification. This is the name, address, and telephone number of the manufacturer or supplier of the substance or mixture. And finally, supplemental information is information not specified or required under the GHS. In some cases, this may be additional safety information such as a chemical's physical state, the routes of exposure, or a hazard not yet incorporated into the GHS. The human spinal column, or backbone, is the body's main support structure. But for such an important body part, it's surprisingly intricate and fragile. The spine is made up of 33 small bones called vertebrae. These are stacked up in a curving column. Between the vertebrae are discs that act as padding or shock absorbers. Hundreds of muscles and ligaments help stabilize and align this entire structure. Through the hollow center of the spinal column runs the spinal cord. This nerve bundle carries commands from the brain to the rest of the body and relays sensory information such as touch, temperature, and pain back to the brain. Injuries can occur to any of these parts of the back, and even minor problems can be painful. Among the most common back injuries, the vertebrae can develop bone spurs or fractures. The discs between the vertebrae can degenerate or become herniated. The nerves within the spinal cord can become pinched. The muscles and ligaments can develop tears or strains. And when stressed, the muscles can spasm. While back injuries sometimes occur as a result of sudden trauma, such as a fall, most back problems are the result of cumulative trauma disorders, or CTDs. These are injuries that occur over time, mostly when workers repeatedly put their backs in unhealthy positions, move in ways that stress their backs, or lift loads that are too heavy. At first, it may seem to a worker that they're able to work this way without any problems, but as the back accumulates damage, they put themselves at risk of pain and impaired function that can no longer be ignored. To better understand how to protect your back while at work or at home, it's helpful to know a few more things about the overall structure of the spinal column. In a healthy posture, the spine has a double S-curve. When aligned in this neutral position, these curves balance each other out, the back is at its strongest, and the muscles are able to provide their maximum support. How do you know if your posture puts your back in this healthy neutral position? Good posture is neither hunched forward nor arched back too much. Instead, when standing in a neutral posture, a straight vertical line would run from the top of your head through the center of your torso to the bottoms of your feet. If you've gotten into the habit of using poor posture, it may be difficult for you to sense when your body is aligned properly. A simple exercise or test can help you regain your feel for proper alignment. Stand with the back of your head, your shoulder blades and your buttocks touching a wall. Place your feet so that your heels are about 4 to 6 inches away from the wall. Now slide your hand with the palm flat against the wall behind the curve in your lower back. If your posture is good, the space between your back and the wall should be about the thickness of your hand. Is there too much or too little space? If too much, reduce the size of the space by tightening your abdominal muscles so that the curve in your lower back is flatter. If there is too little space, give your hand more room by arching your back. Once you have achieved a good fit for your hand, step away from the wall while trying to maintain this posture. This new posture may feel unnatural at first, but it will become easier with practice. From time to time, it's a good idea to use the wall test to recheck your posture. Although good posture is important for reducing back fatigue and pain, it's important to remember that this does not mean that standing rigidly all day like a soldier at attention is healthy. The body requires movement to prevent muscle strain, so avoid standing in one position for long periods of time. Vary your position by sitting down or moving around. When standing on the job, to help reduce strain on the muscles, use anti-fatigue mats and footrests. If you'll be sitting, make sure your chair provides good support and fits you properly. Your knees should be slightly higher than your hips. Also, while seated, maintain a healthy posture by sitting straight rather than slouching. Performing the lift correctly can greatly reduce the risk of back injury. Begin by positioning yourself. Get as close to the load as possible. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart. And for a better balance, place one foot slightly ahead of the other. The next step is key to preventing injury. To pick up a load that's low to the ground, bend at the knees, not your waist. Machines create many hazards. The injuries from these hazards can range from minor cuts and burns to electrocution and death. The list of possible machinery-related injuries is long and horrifying. 14% of all workplace fatalities are classified as struck by or caught in. Nearly 30% of all injuries are the result of contact with a piece of equipment. This is why machine guarding is necessary. The purpose of machine guarding is to protect the machine operator and other employees in the work area from hazards created by nip points, rotating parts, projectiles, and sparks. Workers who operate and maintain machinery suffer approximately 18,000 amputations, lacerations, crushing injuries, abrasions, and over 800 deaths each year. Personal protective equipment, engineering controls, and safe work practices such as lockout-tagout are all important parts of a safe working environment. Machine guards are only one part of the safety blueprint. It is your responsibility to never remove or override these safeguards. If your facility receives new or significantly revised equipment, it must be reviewed by a qualified person before it can be released for production. If you are using new equipment, do not relax simply because it is new. Pay attention and look for any hazards that may have been overlooked. As the machine operator, it is your responsibility to perform your job safely. Machine guards are there for your safety. There is no acceptable reason to remove or override them. Never operate a piece of equipment without guards in place. It is important to conduct a thorough hazard analysis prior to working in an area. Make sure the guards are secure and properly in place before operating the equipment. Machine guards are designed to work with the machine and not hinder the production process. Removing the guards does not enhance the production process, it only increases the risks. Inspect the machine guards on a regular basis. Report any missing or malfunctioning guards immediately. Additional safe work practices you should follow to help ensure your safety when working around moving equipment include being aware of what is happening around your work environment, keeping work areas around operating equipment clean and free of waste material at all times, A good portion of machine guarding injuries occur from the employee slipping, tripping, and falling into a machine that is operating. And remember to wear the proper PPE. However, PPE is only a secondary means of protection. Remove loose jewelry and other items that could get caught in the equipment. Tie back or contain any long hair. Avoid loose clothing. Gloves should not be worn where there is a chance of loose-fitting gloves getting caught in the machine. When possible, use a feeding device. Prior to service or maintenance work on machines, turn them off and disconnect them from their energy sources. To further ensure safety, lock out using energy-isolating devices and tag out the machine. Maintain complete concentration on the task you are performing. Listen to the equipment. If something doesn't sound right, report it to your supervisor. You must understand and respect the potential hazards. Like other forms of protective equipment, machine guards are there for your safety, but they are only effective if properly used.